And Labdien VCM, and welcome to a very unusual, I guess, special and episode of Latvia Weekly. So I am joined here. Well, first of all, I am one of your hosts, Joe Horgan, and I am here in Jelgava. My regular co-host Otto Tabuns is also with me here in Jelgava, but on the other side of Jelgava. And we also have Mr. Kris Akenfelds, who is enjoying a glass of Australian wine down in the bottom right corner, and he is calling in all the way from Australia. So say hello, everyone.
Australia, Cambodia.
Oh, he's calling from Cambodia. I'm sorry, but he's so Kris is a for those of you who've listened to the show before, you might have heard him before. He is an Australian Latvian or Latvian Australian who he has lived here in Riga and then also in Liepāja for some time. He is a Latvian citizen, but he is also a world traveler. So he just left Europe for Cambodia right before everything happened. So. We've got quite a lot to talk about with everyone, but I think we have to start with our official Latvian word of the week. So the Latvian word of the week is Attālināt. This is a word that we're hearing all over Latvia in every single aspect of life. And Otto, being our resident Latvian language expert, somebody who that is your birth language, and that is also a language that you've taught people before as well. Can you explain what exactly Attālināt means?
So I'll probably start by spelling that, which so the word Attālināt is Attalinat, and which literally would to oneself from something. From the base of this word is tāls or tālu, which mean far away, which is very appropriate in this time as one of the measures for keeping us all safe at the time of the new virus across the world.
Yes, and for those of you watching the Facebook Live broadcast or the Facebook video, I just put up the word on the screen so you can see it. Hopefully it is spelled correctly. Otto will let me know later. But anyway, the reason why Attālināt is the word of the week is now it's I don't even know where to begin because let's pick up where we left off from the last episode. At the end of the last episode, Otto and I said that no matter what, we would be here this week doing the podcast, even if we were in quarantine. Not really expecting that we actually would physically be in quarantine. Now, both Otto and I are healthy as far as we know. Mr. Kris Akenfelds is also healthy as far as we know, as far as he knows, I think. But as everybody probably knows at this point, there were extraordinary measures announced by the Latvian government and many governments throughout the world over the weekend in order to stop the spread of the COVID-19 coronavirus, which has been a major problem pretty much on every single continent now. And so Attālināt, or social distancing, as it's been called in English, is the order of the day, as all of you are experiencing now. And it's kind of funny, Otto, because we were talking about either on Friday or Saturday making a special episode of the podcast specifically devoted to the virus and about the measures that Latvia has taken, the Latvian government and everything. But we, every time we were about to record, we just realized there's really almost no point to it because the specific information about the virus and about the measures will probably be different by the time people are listening because things have moved so rapidly. But I think now is finally a moment where things have sort of slowed down a little bit in terms of the rapidity of the new measures that are coming out, the new information that's coming out. Hopefully, by the time you're listening to this, for those of you who are listening to the audio version of this, this information will not be completely out of date. But Otto, can you do a quick run through, and we can do this together, of what are some of the major measures that have been taken by the Latvian government, just in case people haven't heard them yet, or people who might not be following Latvian news so closely, who might be living in other places. What are some of the key steps that the government has taken to try to stop the spread of coronavirus here in Latvia?
Of course, the most meaningful impact that we can see as of today is the suspension of international passenger travel, and which in principle means that borders are practically basically closed, as it has been not only the case for the Latvian government, but also for neighboring countries, in case of Lithuania, also in case of Poland and Germany. So the international travel is practical, and some cases are going through, but those are exceptions authorized by the members of the government in case of the repatriation of those Latvian citizens who are still abroad after this time when the Riga airport was closed and the Riga port was closed. So there are some extraordinary travel organized, such as with the ferries across the Baltic Sea between Germany and Latvia, and that is probably something that affects the most of people. There is also the closure of schools, as probably, Joe, you can see right now. It's probably much more quiet. Also in the Jelgavas State High School, and it is also the case in most other educational institutions except kindergartens that have been closed, and as a result of this also the centralized exams specifically for the foreign languages have also been postponed to presumably May. Another thing that is also postponed, which is also something that we will discuss, is the Riga municipal election, extraordinary one. So this will happen either in April or May, and also there are some limitations for a number of public places, such as restaurants, shopping malls. And so the limitations in the number of people that could gather together, and also, for example, for some other places, the limitation on the working hours, so as to limit the number of people that get together for extensive periods of time. That also includes religious services. So in most churches and temples, they have been suspended until further notice. And also that goes towards all other public events, conferences, seminars, also concerts, so they have been cancelled or postponed. And so it is much, much more quiet and quite an extraordinary situation, probably something that I see for the first time in my lifetime here.
Certainly, yeah. And Otto, the connection dropped out for just 1 second, so I just want to let people know. Otto was talking about the municipal election, because for those of you who've listened to the show before, you know that there was a new election planned for Riga City Council due to a very long story we won't get into right now. That could also be an entire podcast episode. But there was a kind of a extraordinary local city council election for the city of Riga that was planned, and now it's going to be a very extraordinary situation because in this emergency situation, there's no city council that's functioning, so that they're being directly controlled by the central government. Very, very interesting times. And yeah, so about the schools, I can talk about the schools real quick for just a second. But we have gone to distance learning, which is another it could have been the word of the week as well. Tālmācība, like study from afar. Mācība is studies, and tāl is far. This is going to be a very, very interesting challenge for especially elementary school teachers, for university teachers, and for high school teachers and teachers of kind of older kids. It's not such a great challenge because we've already been moving, to using more online materials. But especially for teachers of younger children, it's going to be a lot more difficult. And we'll get into some more of the kind of, I guess, fallout from these measures that have been taken, and discuss this a little bit more. I want to go to you, Kris, for a second, though, because you had quite an extraordinary journey over the last week or so, really. I think, probably since the last time that we did this podcast. And you kind of saw the writing on the wall that the borders were going to be kind of closing. A lot of people weren't really sure if that was going to happen or not. So Kris, last that we heard from you on this podcast, you were a English teacher in Liepāja. So can you give people a little bit of an idea of what changed and how you ended up in Cambodia, of all places in the world?
Yeah, well, basically the school that I'm going to be working for here in Siem Reap, Cambodia, had been expanding in the number of students, and the opportunities for teachers to work in the school were quite good. and I was happy to accept a contract to come back here. And at the time I accepted the contract, I had not predicted anything about border closures or anything. But as it was getting closer to the time where I had to leave Latvia and make my way to Siem Reap, Cambodia, I was absolutely terrified en route that somewhere along the line the big gate would close and I'd be stuck in some intermediate country somewhere between Europe and my destination and not be able to get in. Even in, like I went, the way I went to, I started off leaving Latvia as a tourist. I mean, I took 2 nights in Tartu, Estonia, then I went to Tallinn for 3 nights, party, party, party. Then when I arrive in Helsinki and I get to the airport, I tell you, you could have fired a machine gun through Helsinki airport and not hit anyone. When I went through like baggage check-in, there was only 2 of us there. When I went through security, there was only 1 person in front of me. When I went to passport control, there was no one. I could just walk right up and I was the only person going through passport control. And I was really scared that something happened, like we'd be refused entry to Thailand. Even when I was in Bangkok for only 1 night, I was terrified. The next day I bought the plane, we'd get halfway to Cambodia, the plane would do a 180-degree turn and we'd be straight back in Thailand. So when I arrived back in Cambodia and I finally got my visa, I was like, I'm in. Because in the time I've been here, Cambodia has banned about 6 different nationalities from coming here. Vietnam has banned about 26 different nationalities. And I can tell you Cambodia would have done that very reluctantly because Cambodia is an incredibly welcoming country and they would have been highly reluctant to ban anybody. And certainly the population, they really want to see lots of Westerners here because the economy depends on lots of Westerners being here. But even now in Siem Reap, I go out in some of the busiest areas of town, there's not so many foreigners there, and the local people are actually quite scared. They're very frightened for their livelihoods.
Yeah. No, it's really unbelievable times. And before we go forward and kind of discuss a little bit of the kind of I guess I don't know, take a breath and take stock of what's happened and some of the results of what's happened so far. I just want to put up, for those of you who are on the Facebook page, some numbers on the screen. So there's a informative telephone number that you can call 67387661. So that's in Latvia only, on obviously. That's 67387661. And this is an informative telephone number that you can call with questions about the COVID virus and kind of do a little bit of a, it's kind of funny. Talrunis is also the Latvian word for telephone number. So like distance, distance speaking is literally the phone for telephone. So this word of the week is the perfect word of the week. So this is a number that you can call Monday through Friday, 8:30 in the morning till 9 at night, and also Saturday and Sunday, 8:30 until 5. And there's also one other number as well. So this is an emergency 24/7 number. This is 26337711. That's one more time, 26337711. And this is an emergency. This is an emergency 24-hour for number for help with situations abroad as well. So this seems to be a number if you're trying to get back to Latvia, for example, or if you have some issues with that's an emergency number that you can call too. Also on the English version, the Latvian version of LSM, there's a lot more numbers for specific different situations. You can take a look over there, lsm.lv, and definitely, I would strongly suggest following LSM LV because they're all most of the most important information is on there that the government's using to reach out with people. Also Latvia's Radio 1 and also Latvian TV. Unfortunately, all in Latvian, but there's the English version of LSM as well, which can be helpful. Too. So, we have a lot to discuss, and I don't even know really where to start when it comes to these containment measures. But first, I guess I want to go to you, Otto. So we've both been around, and we've talked to different people. What's the general sense that you've gotten from people here in Latvia? How seriously do you think that the people are taking these measures? How strict do you think that people are in terms of actually following all the different measures that have been recommended? And how worried would you say the people that are when it comes to both the actual virus itself and then also the economic fallout, which we've already been seeing?
Yeah. In what I have seen and heard, there's certainly not a sense of panic. At the same time, you can see that some people are worried. People are discussing this on the street. Let's say when you wait by the red light, you can hear quite a few people discussing the recent news and reports. Um, we have seen an increase into bulk buying, but at least in Jelgava, I've not seen a case where, let's say, these shops would be emptied out as they have been, let's say, in some cases in the United States, in France, or in other cases. And very encouraging also was this announcement from I think it was representative of either one Latvian farmer association or of the producers of the food industries, that they thought that even if the borders would be closed completely, at least food-wise, Latvia would be self-sufficient, and even then we would be able to export the rest of it. So in that regard, we really do not have to worry about it, and at least in our case, we can be calm, and in general, the public reflects this sense. Probably in some cases, especially outside of Riga, it could be an issue for some people now trying to think both about their economic situation, especially in those cases we can't really do your job from home. Also, at least in the first days after the school was cancelled, I could see a lot of school children going around and like trying to find ways how to entertain themselves. Some of them, unfortunately, also were going around and smoking, but thank goodness that was not the majority of the cases that I saw. So certainly something different, a major change in the lifestyles, but at least probably for the first 2 weeks, it should be all right. And if it then extends, especially from the economic viewpoint, we might see this bigger questions raised. Because as we see currently, there are already the representatives of the employers, the representatives of business discussing it with the government, how to deal with the situation when some sectors have come to complete standstill, and what to do, let's say, if that extends over a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to draw attention. So we had a poll on the Latvia Weekly Facebook page. So if you're not a member of the Latvia Weekly Facebook page, I would strongly suggest going there and kind of liking it or following it, because we've been trying to update it as much as possible with coronavirus news. Also other news as well. We have a story of the day every day, even in normal situations, thanks to Andrew and Carlos, our superstar helpers from different parts of the world who update that every day with stories of the day. But from time to time, we do polls. And I put up a poll this morning asking, do you support the measures that the Latvian government has taken to stem the spread of the COVID-19 virus? Please explain why or why not below. And I promised that we would discuss the results of the poll in today's live stream episode. I said Otto and Joe. I didn't mention you, Kris, because I didn't know if I'd be able to get you or not. So I'm glad that you're here. But we can all discuss this together. So it's very, very interesting because Facebook only allows yes or no. They only allow two options. So what I would have liked to do is had yes, no, they're not strict enough, or no, they're too strict, for example, because I think that would be more interesting to find out. But it was very interesting. 87% of you listeners out there and readers agreed with the measures, and then 13% said no. But it was very, very interesting because there was also about 12 comments, and I would say that the wide majority of those comments were people who strongly disagreed with the measures. So it seems like the general sense I've been getting, and this is also with the people I've friends with on Facebook, because it's all everyone's talking about on Facebook, also people out in the community, it seems like there's a silent kind of majority who generally agree with the measures, and then there's some very people with very, very strong opinions who disagree for one reason or another. And I want to go to you, Kris, for a second, over in the bottom right, because I know that you have generally been in the camp that these are not the correct actions that have been taken, and you've been pretty passionately describing why, in some of your Facebook posts lately. So can you kind of explain your case for why you don't think that these are the correct measures that the Latvian government has taken? Because there's many, many people out there who agree with you as well.
Yeah, well, from my point of view, like, I do agree something must be done. There's obviously a virus making its way around the world, and for some people that virus is fatal, and it's certainly not a joke. And most of the experts say it's likely to expand. But what I'm concerned is that we as a society should not be too dogmatic about things. Like, is it necessarily that the actions we're taking now are absolutely the only correct ones or the best ones? And is it possible that some things we're doing could actually exacerbate this virus rather than help? For example, one issue that's been raised amongst a few people I know who are not keen on this, take for example Italy. You've got the situation where all the schools have been closed down, so the kids are at home. Now chances are the parents are still going to work, so it means the kids are likely to be getting babysitted by the grandparents. Now that feels to me you're putting the most vulnerable in regular close contact with the kids who may very well be the most infected. Because as you know, the kids don't tend to get very sick from this, but they could be carrying it. I'm wondering whether that could actually increase the risk to the most vulnerable people rather than protect anyone. I always think you have to look at the other side of the coin. Yeah. The other thing is, even if we do show a bit of self-sacrifice and shut down for a little while, the problem is eventually it's going to hit the economy and it's going to hit it hard. There are going to be businesses that close. There's going to be people who lose jobs, who are left with no income, who cannot pay for rent, cannot pay for food, and will not be able to pay for medical bills. And we're going to get to a point where people are going to retaliate. Initially, people will say, yes, we believe in this shutdown, it's good. But there's going to be a matter of time when people stop looking at this minority who are getting sick, and even smaller minority who are starting to die. And what they're going to look at is their hip pocket. They're going to see that their lives are going to pieces, and they're going to start wondering whether these lockdowns are causing more disasters than they're saving. And this is where I think we have to look at. We have to examine, are there other ways to stop this spreading? For example, here in Cambodia, there really hasn't been a lockdown. There's only 6 nationalities banned from the country. Everyone else can come here. It's mostly business as usual. Yes, they have closed down schools in Siem Reap, and about 2 days ago, schools in Phnom Penh have been closed down. So the kids are learning online, or certainly at the school I'll be teaching at, they're learning online. But when you go out, Cambodians by nature are very quick to put on that face mask. Even if they've just caught a cold, they do that. I've been entering supermarkets where my hands get sprayed with antiseptic. I went to a supermarket the other day and a security guard stopped me and he pointed this little like plastic gun to my head and took my temperature. So it is being taken seriously by the people here, but people are mainly getting on with their lives here, and quite frankly, we're doing okay. Not that many people have caught it in Cambodia, and I don't think anyone's died yet. And I think maybe if we focus more on hygiene, washing hands, sanitizing hands when we enter somewhere, perhaps start wearing gloves and masks, we might not need to shut down as much as we have. And I'm worried really what we're doing now could bankrupt entire countries and actually make it harder for us to fight this virus at a later date. So I'm a little bit skeptical about what's going on at the moment.
Yeah. No, I hear you, and I think those are all, very valid concerns, especially about, because New York City, they took a very long time to shut down their school system for exactly that reason. Not just that, but also, we don't have a childcare infrastructure in America. The way that at least Latvia has like a daycare system, for example. It's not perfect, but there is that kind of infrastructure that doesn't really exist to the same extent in Latvia, in America. And there's a worry that a lot of the emergency workers are going to have to stay home with their kids, and they're not going to be able to, go do their job. So, I do hear these arguments that you're making, that other people are making too. But, I think, at least from what I've read, and maybe you can comment on this too, Otto. It seems like the experts from the health organizations, from World Health Organization, for example, and most of the national governments, disease control centers, they seem to think that the school closures are the best way forward. Also in terms of what's happening in Cambodia, I'm very glad that nothing major's happened there so far. Same here in Latvia, and it's hard to say. Is it just that it's a few weeks away, maybe, or maybe the climate's warmer, the virus doesn't spread as well. Maybe, like you said, it's some of the cultural things as well too. It could also be. Italy's a very close, touchy culture. Same with Spain. Same with France. Could that have an effect on it too? We don't know. We have no idea. Well,
I could just jump in there. Generally speaking, as you said, southern Mediterranean cultures, people are very touchy-feely. They kiss each other when they meet, say goodbye. Cambodians are a little bit more keep your cotton picking hands to yourself. It's more hands-off. The other thing is the climate here is as hot as the hobs of hell. Like right now, it's it's 9:40 in the evening here. It's 30 degrees Celsius outside at night.
Yeah.
And during the day, this solar radiation is very high. And I don't think corona survives long outside the body in hot temperatures with lots of radiation. But the other thing is, because Cambodia is a third world country, corona just joins the list of one of the many diseases doing the rounds here. So Cambodians are naturally very cautious not to get things like dengue fever, malaria. The whole culture is based on not catching anything here. And so people with very little prompting from the government here have swung into action and done what they think they should do. Like, for example, my landlord, in the building I live in, out the front there's a little table, and he's plonked this little bottle of hand sanitizer there and written in English, free sanitizer for your use. So people coming and going will just sanitize their hands. It's just second nature for people here. They've done what they think they need to do to help minimize it. So other than that, life goes on here. Like, I could head out now to a bar or a club or restaurant tonight, and it's business as usual.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's also part of just people's attitude, because I think one of the main reasons why this border closure has been happening is because people physically won't do the smart thing. I had one, I won't use any names, obviously. I had one adult student just last Wednesday who was complaining that, oh, no, I'm not going to be able to go to Spain because my business isn't letting me. I was like, come on. You're thinking about going to Spain right now on your vacation? Yeah, whatever. It's not that big a deal. It's because of people like this that we have to completely shut everything down, because, if we do allow this easy, free movement, I mean, people are going to do really stupid things. Like Otto, for example, you were saying that you have some family members in Milan, and people are, going around doing little excursions in big public places.
So my family, part of my family lives in northern Italy, and so they saw that, of course, there were a lot of people who took the restrictions according to the letter of the law, but at the same time, one of the issues that Italy had also before that, and now, is that is of course one of the largest tourist destinations in Europe. I think number 2 after France and Paris. And so now, instead of all of the tourists that came from, let's say, East Asia, now many Italians themselves had the chance, let's say, to go to Rio Maggiore or Portofino and enjoy some of these places that usually are cram-packed with people other than Italians. So that certainly did not help. But now they have been more strict with that, and even now travel between the cities has been suspended unless you have, let's say, permission from the doctor, or a special permission that there is some kind of work that you have to do that is so significant that they have to let you. At the same time, one thing on the increase is home deliveries of food, which has been a way for many Italian restaurants and cafes have to keep in business even despite these restrictions, because if people cannot go to them, then at least they can deliver the food to homes, and that has been a business lifesaver for quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kris.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just thinking, I was talking to a Latvian friend of mine today. He's in Riga, and he's got this theory that this entire coronavirus episode and the need for locking down that governments have, or the path they've taken in locking down countries, could change society forever. He thinks it could boost telecommuting, it could increase the incidence of schools being conducted online, subjects being made available online. He thinks it will actually probably be a big boost to the whole telecommuting concept and people working from home. Like, even when the lockdown is no longer needed, this may sort of become a thing that goes on in the future. Like, he's looking at very much in terms of the societal changes that will come from this.
Yeah, I agree, because I think that's similar as we, for example, had seen in the field of energy, like with the oil shock in 1973, and also like with the these problems with gas deliveries starting from 2013. So like once things like these happen that affect whole blocks of society, then only we have to start to think about like what alternatives there could be so that we could still keep the quality of life that we expect to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely. It's it's a very, very, very delicate balance. We'll discuss some of the more economic issues in just a second. I just want to draw attention to one thing regarding the measures that we discussed earlier. So there was a report by Leta, the Latvian news agency, yesterday that there's already been at least 14 cases of people breaching emergency measures. That's probably gone up by now. But yes, police are actually going around and doing checks. So for those of you who are not taking this seriously, there are people, police giving out fines, not to everybody obviously, but they do want you to take these measures seriously. So anyway, let's talk about the economy now, because this has been the big elephant in the room. We've kind of skated around the issue quite a few times, but there already has been major fallout. We could just look at the global scale of this, in terms of what's been happening in America with the stock exchanges in America, also with some layoffs that have been happening in America. And, I have family members who are already, at least temporarily losing their jobs. It's becoming a very ugly situation because they work in different service industries, and they're not needed right now. But here in Latvia, the big news has been about Air Baltic. They're talking about laying off a significant part of their staff. They've already laid off about a third of their staff. This is one of the biggest and most well-known companies here in Latvia. But of course, there aren't any flight attendants needed at this time, and also a lot of other personnel as well. And they're I can't help but imagine, like as Kris, as you were talking earlier, I wouldn't say that Latvia is completely as much of a tourist-based economy, or Riga is as much of a tourist-based economy as some of the cities in Italy or France, but a lot of the economy is based now off of the service sectors of hotels, restaurants. This is a big part of how things work, especially in Riga, and these are all going to take massive hits. And the big question is, how do we go forward? And maybe Otto, you can comment on this. There have been talks, both by the European Central Bank to free up some funding and some money into to send to some banks, and then also here in Latvia there is talk about from what I've read, €1 billion kind of emergency fund. So what exactly would that entail? How would that look? And also, as somebody who focuses more on economic issues than I do, how do you kind of evaluate it so far, Otto?
So in the case of the 1 billion that you mentioned, that apparently is the amount of money that is currently available at the state coffers, both part of the tax income that is there, some deposits from previous years, and also some money that has been loaned to Latvia under presumably better rate that is there, that the Prime Minister had told us that could be earmarked for a number of measures in supporting the economy in this time. Because one measure that they have been discussing is that for example, these sick leaves that would extend over, let's say, 2 weeks, or would require these additional measures, could be then perhaps covered by the state instead of the employer, even up to 100%. So that's something that they're discussing, and probably they will come out with a decision on this. That is, of course, also the question of the unemployment benefits, because on the one hand, here we can see this positive side for those people who are employed officially, as in case of the Air Baltic employees who are going to be laid off, they will be able to sustain almost the same quality of life as they ought to receive, many of them, these unemployment benefits for several months. So presumably after this suspension is over, it will be possible for them to get back their jobs. So at least this is a safety cushion, at least this period, up to a year, if it takes that long. Of course, then there is the problem for people who are employed unofficially, or people who pay a little, if any, tax, because then in the cases of layoffs, there is almost no social security except of any, let's say, deposits that people might have been wise enough to plan for, but that I would assume would not be the majority of cases. So perhaps there might be also some government involvement in some of the measures that the banks have announced. For example, today I read the news that a Swedbank is considering 6 months credit holidays, meaning that the payments for the loans by Swedbank, which is one of the top 3 largest banks in Latvia, that would be certainly something very useful for those businesses whose money inflow stops for a couple of months due to a lack of customers. So there have been a number of meetings, a number of discussions, and of course this has been a very extraordinary, but not many plans in play in the public and private sector. I'm happy to see that they are they are discussing this, that some solutions might be found in the coming days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, we're going to need big thinking with this right now, because what we've seen in especially in America right now happening with the economic consequences. I think here in Europe, we're not going to be any safer. We have the same kind of problems that are happening right now. I've seen this gone from being talking about are we going to have some kind of big recession. I've seen the D word. We use the B word to talk about Brexit, but people are talking about the D word now about are we going to have some kind of new depression? Is this going to be a repeat of the Great Depression now, with all the economic fallout that's going to happen? And one thing I want to draw attention to, I've been seeing there's some talk about people even going to banks, trying to get a lot of cash out, worrying that the banks are going to have problems. Which again, if there is some kind of bank panic, if people start drawing cash out, that really does cause a big problem, because it's very hard for the bank to survive that. And I just want to mention that okay, yes, if this happens, if you run to the bank and empty out your entire savings in cash and the whole system collapses, well, good luck, because that cash is going to be useful as toilet paper, which has been exceedingly difficult to go find. So I just just like people are out panic buying everything right now, please don't rush to the bank and cause an even bigger problem, because then we're really in trouble. If everyone starts panicking and losing confidence in the financial system, then good luck. So please don't be stupid. Please don't.
Yeah. I could probably jump in there. As an Australian citizen, I was actually quite disgusted by the behaviour of my fellow Australians with that stupid toilet paper panic that went on. I mean, toilet paper is not food. It's not an essential. There's so many workarounds to toilet paper. But what I've admired amongst the Cambodian people is there's no panic here. Mm-hmm. You go to the supermarkets, there's all the toilet paper you want, there's all the food there. People just buy what they need and they leave. There hasn't been people stockpiling or going bananas here. But I think it is important to point out that these panic buyouts do not serve anyone's interests, and if it was to hit the banks, if there was a bank run and everyone starts pulling their money, it could send the banks to the wall. And if that happens, we are in, as we know, we're in deep, I won't say what.
Yeah, but and then what's the use of having a bunch of euro bills if it's not worth anything? So just don't do anything stupid. Anyway, Otto, I know you want to jump in.
Yeah, because there is no threat of the bank system going down, and we can be sure of the stability, because although there are sectors such as the airlines and, let's say, hotels, the tourism industry that has been heavily affected by this, we have to remember that the cargo flow, in contrast to the passenger flow, is still open. So the business is going on, and those businesses that can do, let's say, without tourists and without airplanes are fine, because even like through the airport, the cargo traffic is going through. So certainly this will have an effect on the economy, and already there were some forecasts that there certainly will be an imprint of this. In countries such as Italy, you already had this not so shiny economic forecast in the last quarter. So at least economically, I don't think that we have to blow it out of proportion. And certainly also in the case of toilet paper, we don't have to go mad, especially if we're talking about a respiratory infection instead of any other ailment. So be cautious and let's have reserves, but at the same time, let's not lose common sense.
Yeah, and Otto, I mean, we've been saying for weeks now that, it is always good to have 2 weeks of supplies, just ready at any moment, because you never know. There can be a storm, there can be something else, like my family, we try to have, some extra food that we rotate out, just because, if there's, like, we had a big storm here all throughout Europe, and, if there's a bunch of trees down, power out, then, the stores might be shut. That's smart to have in any case, because yes, it is possible to be quarantined. You might not be able to go to the store and eat. That doesn't mean that you need to take your entire month's wages and go to the store and empty out all of the non-perishable goods, because that's just selfish. I mean, what are you going to do with all that? It's just, and especially the toilet paper too. I wrote on Facebook a couple days ago, I really hope that, if you're one of those people out there who stockpiled all the toilet paper and nobody else has it right now, start reaching out to your friends and family, because I legitimately have friends and family in America who cannot get toilet paper. And, this sounds kind of funny, but it's really not. There's going to be plumbing issues soon, because people are going to start getting desperate. So just anyway, just keep your heads, of course, yes, it's good to have some extra supplies, but don't, and it's interesting actually here in Latvia, in most of the supermarkets, the shelves which have been kind of empty are the ones with grichi, which is buckwheat, which is not really a thing anywhere else. I just call it grichi because nobody ever has any idea what buckwheat is outside of Latvia or outside of this region. But it's a really great. It's not a grain. It's actually technically a seed, I guess. It's like a roasted seed, and it's kind of similar to rice. It tastes good with just about anything. I mean, I love grichi. What about you guys? Are you grichi fans?
Yes, I am, and I have quite a few of it.
Yeah.
I must admit, I'm a fan too. I quite like it, but that would be unusual for people from my part of the world. I consider myself quite an exception there.
But it's just funny, it's kind of become a little bit of a running joke or a meme here in Latvia that people are stockpiling grichi here while other people are stockpiling toilet paper. But anyway, and then also rice, pasta, things like that. And what's really interesting is that the bottom shelf stuff, so the cheapest off-brand stuff, is the stuff that's gone. The most expensive stuff is still there, but most foods you can still get, because the Latvian supply chain is completely fine right now. And
Oh, sorry, I'll let you finish. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. The last thing I wanted to say, and I'll hand it to you, Kris, because this is going off of a point that you made, that we haven't really seen this in Cambodia, we haven't really seen this in Latvia. I think one of the issues is that also people here don't have massive salaries where they can spend thousands of dollars worth of toilet paper they don't need, and other things like that. And it's probably the same in Cambodia. So I think that's actually one of the issues too, is that people just physically can't go out and spend all that money on these ridiculous kind of panic runs. So but anyway, so Kris, I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say also, I think what people need to do is, rather than panicking, have a little bit more confidence in government authorities. I mean, Europe is a highly developed place in the world. It's quite well coordinated. No government here is ever going to let people starve to death. Like, they're always going to make sure food gets in somehow. They're going to make sure it's getting distributed somehow. So just on that alone, there's no real need to run out to a supermarket here and start grabbing food. I mean, it's not the same as if a tropical cyclone hits, like we get in the north of Australia, where the food supply actually does get shut down. There's nothing that physically impedes food coming into Latvia. And I sort of think there would always be positions in place to make sure people can get food. So I would call on everyone in Europe, chill out, just relax. There's no need to go running to the supermarket and destroying your life savings on baked beans and tuna or whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly, because we do have a surplus of food in here, so that shouldn't be a problem.
What's funny, one of the articles I read on, I think it was like TVNet or something, one of the portals here, just the day before the emergency measures and people started running the supermarkets, is, does Latvia really need so many supermarkets? Because there's been a lot of talk that we have too many supermarkets here. Well, they certainly don't feel like that right now, certainly, but... Anyway, there's just two other points I want to make about. I don't want to only talk about coronavirus today. We've already been talking about it for almost 3/4 of an hour. But two other points I just want to make real quick. One is that there's been a lot of talk going around that this isn't really that serious. Oh, the flu has a higher amount of deaths, and there's other things that cause a lot of deaths. Well, yeah, okay, that's technically true, but compared to even, swine flu back in 2009, 2010, the difference here is that the rate which it spreads and also the severity of the symptoms that it causes with certain people, it's just caused a complete overrun of the hospital system, and we've seen in Italy so far, and we're starting to see horror stories in France and even parts of America. There's even certain towns in America where it's been completely overrun. And the thing I just want to mention, I've been telling this to people all week, is that yes, okay, you personally might be totally fine, because all three of us here, we're all, young, healthy people, and we're probably not going to get very sick even if we catch the virus, which is actually, the virus itself is called SARS-CoV-2, which feels like a real flashback to 2003. And the disease it causes is called COVID-19. But anyway, but the issue is, okay, so say, the hospitals are just completely overrun with patients to the extent where, they have people, in tents outside, as we've seen in Italy, places like that. Say one of us breaks our leg, say one of us, has some other issue, and we have to go to the hospital. Well, then, now it's suddenly a problem for us, and it's a problem for anyone else who's sick or with any other reason. So, it is, it might feel like we're kind of overreacting for, only a small percentage of the population, which, is really at risk, but it becomes a big problem for us if all of a sudden our health system is shut down, and, then we suddenly start caring. So, that's.
Yeah, and we have to know that the government has taken a number of measures also in regard to the healthcare system capacity. One thing that they had announced is that there are 1,000 hospital beds ready in case there would be like so many cases in Latvia. So currently it is below 100. Our capacity has been at least well planned for the foreseeable future. At the same time, it is indeed the case what you mentioned, Joe, and also what Kris mentioned earlier. With a case of, let's say, children being let to stay by their grandmother or grandfather. There was a case actually yesterday. They discussed that on the Latvian television. That, for example, one relatively young Latvian citizen had returned home from one of these trips, and he visited. I think it was either his mother or father, and it seemed to be the case that he did not have very strong symptoms of the case, but apparently his elderly relative became another case because of this passing this virus along. So that is the case that even if we ourselves might be fine, we have to take care and take into account our other relatives that might not be in such a strong position as we are. For example, I just had an elderly relative that came out of a hospital with a cardiovascular condition, so I know that probably I won't be visiting for, let's say, at least the next 2 weeks, so to be sure that in addition to all the troubles that my relative has, the coronavirus wouldn't be something on top of this.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, we can react without panicking, and we can take it seriously. We don't have to panic, but there's somewhere in between, because, there's some people saying that we have to completely, basically like handcuff ourselves to our, beds until this all goes away. There's some people saying that we should just continue life as usual. I've heard some horrible, things of like, oh, well, they're already old anyway. They're already, on their way out, just heartless things from people like that. Okay, those are two extremes. There's something in the middle. I think we can all agree with that we have to take it seriously and we have to be smart about it. We do have to be critical about the way that we react, both to the virus itself and also about the economic fallout. And the one last thing I wanted to say just before we move on from coronavirus, finally, and this is, I think something that both of you guys are going to agree with, is that, this is going to be a very, very painful time. This is going to be, I think, I already, I've been saying this even last week, I think this is going to be the really first tough year for the Western world in general since, probably the end of the Second World War. I know, other places in the world have had very, very tough years. Even in Latvia, at the end of the Soviet Union, there was some very, very tough years. But I think this is going to be the first really tough year that we have kind of in general as Western society. And we all need to step up. We all need to check on our neighbors. We all need to check on our family members. Even if it's as simple as just calling people who we think might be lonely, or who might be anxious, who might just want somebody to talk to. And also, some of us have money saved away right now. Some of us don't. So some of us live paycheck to paycheck. Some of us are lucky enough to have a little bit of savings, but we're all going to have to help each other out right now, because we're all in this together. It's not like this is some kind of biological attack like some people have been trying to make this into. It's not time to point fingers. It's not time to turn to some kind of questionable or can we trust the scientists or can we trust the politician, this or that. Everyone's in this. We're all trying our best, and we just got to help each other. We got to try to be constructive. We got to try to do the best we can to just make sure we get through this. And I think you guys can agree with that too.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Basically, I don't think this is something that's going to go away quickly. I don't think this is something that will be over in 30 days. And whatever happens, it will require society to pull together just a little bit more tightly than we have in the past. No matter how we approach this, no matter what we agree on or disagree on, it's definitely going to require just that little bit more of a team effort, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys ready to move on from coronavirus-based news to other issues? Finally. Yeah. So,
Yes.
So, we already talked about the Riga municipal election. That's going to be postponed. So will our episode about the candidates, because that actually, gives time for some certain parties who haven't really gotten their act together yet to kind of, it's like, I almost feel like, it's this dark version of, I don't know, probably neither of you guys had snow days really, but in Maine, we used to get so much snow. Like sometimes we would get half a meter of snow in one night, so they'd have to close school. Just because so many people drove to school or took snow buses, and the government basically just needed people off the road so they could plow them. So there'd be certain times where there was a test, and then the next day it looked like it might snow a lot, and people were like, maybe it's going to snow, maybe I don't have to study for it, maybe it's going to be okay. And then we turn on the news in the morning like, oh, phew, the school was canceled. So I feel like there might be a few political parties who are not thankful that this situation's happening, but definitely are going to take advantage of having some time to get their acts together, because
Well, for some it will be a benefit, but I think for some of it will be not so good, in the sense that some of the steam that they try to use it in preparing this situation will actually go off, and people might forget what were some of the reasons why actually people were angry with the existing convocation of the city council, and why there is the need for the new one. So there will both be winners and losers out of this delay.
Which, to be honest, was
Yeah, there's
very
a saying.
confusing. Oh yeah, go on, Chris.
Yeah, I was just saying, there's a saying, a week is a long time in politics, and they're getting quite a few weeks out of this, I think.
Yeah. Well, a week's a long time just in this world, right? I mean, just think like a week ago, less than a week ago, I was at normal day of school. There was no talk that there could be any, shutdown of school or anything. I mean, life has completely changed. So, the fact, I think people are going to kind of scratch their heads right now, like, oh, who's the mayor? Huh? Because people have kind of forgotten, like, oh yeah, there was some administrator appointed by the government. What's his name even? I mean, can you even name who the administrator is off the top of your head? I mean, you're the walking encyclopedia of political knowledge. I think nobody even cares right now. We're all just trying our best to get through this crisis.
Well, probably I'm also one of them, because I cannot recall him from the top of my head either.
Yeah, and for Otto, that's a big issue.
I got nothing.
Yeah, so. Anyway, no, but they're whoever it is going to be very, very busy right now. So, one very, very interesting kind of tidbit of news. Normally, this might even be kind of the top story of the week, but administrative territorial reform, this project which all three of us have been talking about. Kris, you've been talking about this quite a bit as well, because you did a big bicycle trip this summer through some of Latvia's outer regions, through some of the regions that are going to be most affected by these territorial changes. But basically, there's a plan to decrease the amount of counties here in Latvia, or we call them nuovadi, and also the cities of the Republic, from about 120 down to about just 40. And there's been a big debate over what is the correct amount, and there's been some certain exceptions that have been made here and there. Very interestingly, so this was the second reading in Saima, Latvian Parliament. So the opposition parties were going through something kind of like we have in America, the filibuster. where they'd go through and kind of, debate every single little amendment to try to take as long as possible to, kind of as a form of protest. And this was the day before kind of the emergency measures were passed. So what happened was, they tabled it. They talked about the emergency measures. They passed those. They went back to territorial reform. The opposition basically withdrew all of their, objections, and they just passed it for now because there's still going to be one more final reading. They can discuss it then. They certainly will. They're certainly going to debate it then. But it is nice. I mean, I know everyone loves to complain about, every other political party that they don't like, and some people just like to complain about the government in general. But it was kind of this nice show that they can take this seriously, that they're not going to just use this as an attempt to bicker about this or that, and that they when push comes to shove, where there is this kind of major crisis that affects everyone, they were able to step up and kind of get that through and push this issue off, which isn't as essential right now, to a later date. But I don't think this is the last we're going to be hearing about this. I think when they have that final reading, there definitely there's going to be some fierce debate. Well, what do you think, Otto?
Certainly, because probably none of the parties wanted to remain the last one who is trying to make some kind of additional debate on this administrative reform in the time when you have borders closing and thousands of Latvian citizens being stuck somewhere in the middle abroad. So it was a nice gesture from all of them, but probably that will not be the last of it, because, well, they might go through with it in the parliament, and that's very likely that they might even have consensus on it. At the same time, that is no guarantee that, let's say, the municipalities themselves would not go to the constitutional court and then try to change the law like this, and then the administrative reform in for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're definitely going to be hearing quite a bit more about this in the near future. So that final reading is in May, from what I understand. But that could be postponed as well too, because we don't know how long this crisis is going to continue. Another very interesting story. This could also have been, in a normal week, this could have been the top story. But so Ralphs Nemiro, who is the Minister of Economics from the KPVLV party, this was the party that became very, very popular during the 2018 election, founded by Artis Kaimench, and also led in that election by Aldis Gobzems as their prime minister, two kind of superstars of Latvian political social media, and kind of among the more conspiratorial and populist crowd. So they came sweeping into Saima. They got the second most amount of votes throughout the country, and they also got they tied for the second most amount of seats with 16. They don't have so many anymore because both Mr. Gobzems and Mr. Kaimench, the two leaders, have basically both been kicked out of the party for different reasons, different ways. A lot of people have left the party for other reasons as well. It's not as shiny as it used to be. But Otto, can you explain why Mr. Nemiro had to leave the position, and why he was not able to maintain his security clearance? What the issue is there?
So, as we know, one of the very valuable thing to have is to have a security clearance, both for the national documents that involves state secrets, and also the issues of NATO and European Union secrets. And here, apparently, the case has been that initially, when Mr. Nemiro became the minister, he already received this temporary short-term security clearance, which means that apparently from the initial checks that they did, it was possible to give him out this permit. At the same time, there might have been some issues that needed additional research and clarification. And I'm not exactly sure what is the circumstance with Mr. Nemiro, because apparently, especially since the changes in the legislation, there's security services explain or give the reasoning to the person why this clearance has been rejected. At the same time, there is no obligation on his part to share this with the general public. If we could look at some other occasions where this has happened, a very frequent occasion has been the case of simply lying or not telling the truth, because security services, at least in the case of Latvia, they are not employing two people. They work very well. So if you lie to them, it's usually possible for them to find it out. And so that's the matter of trust, which is one of the most important aspects. Then some other issues that could be with losing the clearance are, you can look it up in the law. It could be the question that perhaps a person has dependencies, such as with alcohol and drugs or other substances that are forbidden. For example, also gambling issues. That could make it a problem for the person if he has this position of state authority. That could make it possible for, let's say, any other institution or agency from another country to try to employ this weakness against this person. So there's a variety of reasons, and let's see whether Mr. Nemiro will speak more on this. But it seems that they have decided not to make a big fight out of this, especially during the coronavirus crisis, similarly like with the administrative reform. And the KPV party will not leave the government, but rather choose another candidate to keep it together. Because they have said that they could leave the government, that of course they can do, but as they are not exactly 16, but a smaller number, such a gesture would not make a difference, let's say, as it did at the time when they made the coalition.
Certainly not. So now, Kris, I wanted to go for you for a second because Mr. Nemiro is actually kind of an interesting figure, and I know that he was very popular among some of your Facebook friends, some of the kind of more conspiratorial, kind of anti-corruption oriented Facebook friends that you have, and Mr. Nemiro was very, very popular at first among this group. He made some very bold proclamations that he was going to investigate some charges that had been made, and then it was kind of interesting that he just kind of disappeared. He made this one Facebook post where he made some very strong statements, some very strong proclamations, and then he never kind of went back to them, and people kind of pointed them out later. Would you say, Kris, that he kind of lost the support of kind of this segment of the vote?
It was a little bit disappointing because in the lead up to the election, he made a post on Facebook which was a very unequivocal statement about Parex Bank and allegations of corruption involved in the bailout of Parex Bank. And you're probably aware this is a very passionate issue for one of our regular watchers and listeners, Mr. John Christmas, who was heavily involved with that. And for us, this was a great moment because it was a Latvian politician coming out and made a very strong statement about that. Then he got into government, got into a very significant position, and we didn't hear a thing about it since. So we were a little bit disappointed. We thought he might have done a lot more than what he said in the lead up to the election. It seemed to be the issue vanished from his plate. So I was personally quite disappointed. I went in sort of thinking he might get into his position and then use that position to sort of raise certain issues pertaining to corruption in Latvia. Yeah, which he appears not to have.
And I think that's kind of how people feel in general about KPVLV, is that they made these very bold plans of action that they were going to do this and that, and then we haven't really seen much of that. And I think their support base is more or less kind of collapsed. It certainly seems like it, Otto, at least from from a polling perspective. So I don't know how they're going to do, but it'll be very interesting to see in the local election if they are able to kind of make a little bit of a comeback. So.
I can give you my prediction. I think KPV is kaput. They're finished. They're not going to survive.
Kaput LV.
I think that we can see at least from the politics that in the national government now getting the role the independents have in the Riga City Council, knowing that they have to make most out of what they have, because there is not a strong chance that they will have such a success as they did in the last election.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be doing very well. Anyway, I think yeah. Just one last thing to mention. We didn't actually mention the name of the new economics minister who has been named, but that is Mr. Jonas Wittenbergs, who has been proposed as the new minister of economics. So he's going to have quite an interesting job to do in the next couple of months. So we wish him the best of luck in trying to right the economic ship, which will be. I don't know. I certainly. I mean, if there's one job I would want to have right now. Oh God, would
Yes,
any?
I was thinking that is a very unenviable position for a very brave politician. I'm going to say that.
Yeah. Would you rather be health minister or economics minister right now? I don't even know.
I'd rather be here in Cambodia teaching. There's neither of those ministries that I want. I can't imagine anyone queuing up for the job, that's for sure.
Oh, geez. Well, anyway, couple other small stories before we start to wrap up because we've already gone a little bit over. Thanks for sticking with us. I know, I hope this has been interesting for you just hearing about Corona because, it's probably all most of you have been, hearing about, talking about, but, it's something that everyone kind of wants to talk about. So, a couple other non-Corona related stories before we start to wrap up. One is that Latvia's Banka has joined this new initiative with other global central banks. This is the Network for Greening the Financial System. And so from what I understand, this doesn't quite have to do with money laundering or anything like that. It has to do with climate change and a transition to an environmentally friendly kind of paradigm, which we need to go to because even though right now we're all concerned only about kind of surviving this current crisis, there still is, the climate issue, which is not going away anytime soon. So any comments on this initiative, Otto?
A good idea because it hopefully will not only benefit them, but also will make a better use of the resources that an institution with its own budget will have. So hopefully this perhaps the guidance of new and could be one of the achievements of this institution.
Yeah, very good. I think we're losing your connection a little bit, Otto. But let's get through a few more stories real quick. So one very interesting one is that there is one social business up in Valmiera, which is creating recycled PET. So there's one type of recycled plastic bikinis. So you can make they're making bikinis out of recycled plastic, which I don't know. I don't have any idea when it comes to style or anything. But these look pretty cool. You can go to the English version of LSM and check this out. That's nice. Some positive news that when finally we're able to go back to the beach, we can go in recycled plastic swimwear. I don't know. Would you guys be interested in recycled plastic swimwear?
I probably wouldn't look really good in that, particularly if it's a tight fit. But I think there are some young women who would look absolutely beautiful in that kind of attire.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Okay.
Well, as long as the swimwear fits its purpose, then I think it's not a bad idea that it uses recycled material and does not provide any more waste than we already have.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and it's just nice to see that people are forward thinking, and that here in Latvia, there's creative ways to kind of deal with some of these issues about consumption and things like that.
Yeah, certainly I think this is actually a good thing for Latvia that there are people out there using their brains and coming up with these things and then making them a reality. Because the more people we have in Latvia doing that, the better the country will be, honestly. So it's a good thing. I think the world could go without seeing me in plastic swimwear. I think they survive perfectly well without that.
I think I would also survive perfectly well, Kris. Thank you for putting the image in my mind, though. Anyway,
you won't sleep tonight.
Yeah, I think we all need to work on our beach bodies. But anyway, so one other story, which is also about people trying to do the right thing, but maybe not quite succeeding in that. So, there's a lot of different charities, a lot of different organizations that can take secondhand clothing, which is great because, it could be sold in charity shops. It can also be donated to people who need such clothing. But the problem is a lot of people have been donating basically whatever they want and have been cleaning out the junk in their closets that can no longer really be used. So there's a story on the English version of LSM that one charity foundation, Outra Elpa, which is kind of translates into second breath, or second wind, I think would be the more term that we use in English more often. So just recently, they at one charity event, they had to spend basically 8,000 euros in garbage disposal bills based on all the junk clothing that was donated to them. So please, it's great if you want to, if there's a sweater you don't wear anymore. I probably also need to empty out my closet because there's also a bunch of, shirts that I've worn once or twice and just don't look very good on me because nothing looks good on me, basically. There's just a couple of things. Don't throw out that, pair of jeans you've worn since the 80s that has a bunch of holes in them. Throw it out. Just don't donate it because, just think that they have to do something with it, and they're not, just because there's needy people, it doesn't mean that, we have to disrespect them and give them like absolute garbage, in terms of clothes. So just, be smart about that.
Yeah. We have to be more selective about this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is a problem that happens in Australia too. You've got two major agencies, the Brotherhood of St Lawrence and St Vincent de Paul, who are commonly known as St Vinnies, and people just use their place where you're supposed to, put clothes that can be reused. They use it as a dumping place, and it causes a lot of problems for those agencies too.
Yeah, well, anyway, one other story from the domestic side before we kind of wrap up. So there is a very interesting archaeological excavation that's happening in the old town, and I didn't actually know this was an archaeological expedition. But this is so I think you've probably been here as well, Kris. This is in Dome Square, so near the Dome Cathedral. There's this big kind of like outdoor deck. There's this one restaurant there, and it's kind of changed names a few times. Right now it's called Domedals. It's this kind of like little summer terrace, and there's like some different little restaurants there. And it's this big deck, and I saw that there was a bunch of construction there, and I thought, oh, they must be renovating it, and they must be doing some pipe work. But it's actually a massive archaeological excavation, so they're searching for different artifacts there. So very, very interesting to see what will happen there. Apparently, they're also planning on building another hotel. I don't know if that will happen anymore, considering that we already have quite a few hotels and they're going to be hurting pretty soon. But in any case, hopefully we will have some new kind of archaeological treasures from that, from these digs. So something cool to look forward to. We'll see what happens there. So normally we talk about international news at this point. Do you think there's anything about coronavirus or other international stories we haven't covered yet? Is there anything else you just want to mention, Otto, before?
I think we have covered most of it. There have been some news that there have been possibly the vaccine for the coronavirus found, or perhaps like these formulas that have been found, and they are now tested both in Germany, in Israel, in some other places. And there was also this debate between some countries about, let's say, trying to buy over the companies and these research that is being done. So that's certainly an issue for many countries. And let's hope that this possible vaccine will go successfully throughout the clinical testing, and that we will be able to start using it as soon as possible. That would be probably the main international news that we should follow.
Yeah. And
and also there's...
go on, Kris. Sorry.
I'll let you go.
Yeah, well, I just want to mention...
there's also talks...
See, this is a unique technical challenge right now that we have, because there's like a tiny little delay between us. So we both trying to be polite. It's like, when two people are in the hallway and they're trying to walk by each other and they both move to the left, they both move to the right. So I'll just talk because I guess I'm the loudest right now, and then I'll let you talk. I just wanted to mention this is not the best time to be a some kind of vaccine vaccine truther, vaccine fake specialist or anything like that. I understand it's good to be critical about everything, but out of all the times to criticize or question vaccines in the middle of a global pandemic, this is not the best. I mean, of course, the government agencies are going to have to do their absolute best to make sure that these are rigorously tested. That's one of the reasons why, even if the vaccine's found tomorrow, it's still going to take months in the best case scenario to make sure that it's actually safe and that it's actually and to actually manufacture them. But we have to have our best trust in that they're going to be able to do that. So this isn't the best time to be posting your moms against vaccines or Dr. Bob Joe whatever this guy is who says that they're going to give you some kind of brain damage. I mean, not the right time to be doing that. So anyway, Kris, I'll let you go now.
Yeah, well, there's also word some Australian scientists in Melbourne have hit on some kind of a drug that's showing very promising results in people they've been treating with coronavirus. But as you say, that's got to go to proper testing. Yeah. I would be very happy if the Australian government throws any amount of taxpayers' money at that necessary to see that to fruition, because it could also be something else that's going to help the world. And let's face it, this kind of research is now a very high priority at the moment. So I hope that goes well down under too.
Yeah, I remember, Kris, I saw a Facebook post of yours that said you prematurely award the Nobel Peace Prize for the next year to whoever can come up with a cure for this. And I think pretty much everyone would agree at this point.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. When we talk about who the next Nobel Prize winner will be, if someone really stands out in the field of coronavirus, I think they will be a very hot contender for it. And I sort of added, perhaps a little bit tongue-in-cheek, please let that be a scientist and not a politician. Yeah. Because I think the scientists will be the heroes out of this in the end.
Oh, of course they will. Yeah, of course they will. Yeah. There's this one great song by the Flaming Lips, actually, "Race for the Cure," or it's called "Race for the Prize," but it's actually about two scientists who are trying to race to cure this disease. I've got to go listen to that later. So if you guys are looking for something, Flaming Lips, "Race for the Prize." Sorry, this has nothing to do with Latvia. Yeah. We have to get back and finish this up. Otto, how about week in history? Can you tell us some interesting things that happened this week in Latvian history?
Yeah, certainly. I would like to remember one very notable event that took place 30 years ago, as on March the 18th, 1990, was the first time in the Soviet-occupied Latvia when a democratic election was allowed, meaning that parties other than the Communist Party were permitted to the ballot. And that allowed the Latvian Popular Front to get a majority in the Supreme Council and paved the way to the May the 4th Independence Declaration later in 1990. So, and this year it is 30 years, so it is a great anniversary to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the week in the future, we normally have a kind of a week in the future about events that are coming up. But I think the best advice is to find something very interesting to do indoors. One thing I can recommend, by the way, for those of you who are interested in learning Latvian and or if you already know Latvian and you want to find something interesting to watch, filmas.lv. So all of the movies in the Latvian culture canon, they are available for free streaming. I would strongly suggest watching some of these. For example, Kris, when you were over the summer, we watched together Chetri Balti Krekli, Four White Shirts, which I think you enjoyed. Also, Limousine in the Color of Yanni Night or Midsummer Night. That's a great one you can watch. There's a bunch of really good ones from the culture canon. So you can try to be more cultural and check out some of those films for free. Anything you can suggest people to do, Otto, while they're indoors?
Well, for the indoors, there's also a number of board games that you can do with your family. Also, a very interesting way how to do it. I saw it on Facebook from one of my friends that they are actually playing board games almost in a similar video conference that we are doing between 3 different countries. So you can actually do that with some of them or online. At the same time, I would also not discourage people from going outside, but being innovative and, let's say, trying to do a walk in the forest or park or somewhere where you could still get some fresh air and sunshine or vitamin D with a little people around. So take your dog for a longer walk outside somewhere. There are plenty of opportunities to keep healthy and stay sane in this period of time.
But 2 meters away from other people though, please.
Exactly, as our
Yeah.
government has recommended us.
Which is great in Jelgava because Jelgava is a very sparsely populated city, so we have no problems. I think in Siem Reap it's probably a little bit trickier, but we still all need fresh air because if we only stay inside the entire time, then we'll definitely all get sick. So we do have to be smart and careful, but so just stick in there, everyone. I mean, we're all in this together. And if any of you need any help with anything, I've already had some people, some fellow Americans or other foreigners who are here in Latvia who have had some troubles, just navigating this whole situation. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure Otto also would be happy to to help with things
Sure.
as well. And because
Write us anytime.
yeah, because we're not just some talking heads, even though we look like it right now. If you're watching the Facebook version, we're doing this for you guys. We hope this is useful. We hope it's useful to kind of talk through what's happening and the news every week. So we want to be there for you. So let us know if there's anything we do to help. Anyway, Kris, I think it's pretty late over there in Siem Reap. It's I don't know what your bedtime is. With my daughter, I probably have an earlier bedtime than you. But we should probably all get going pretty soon. Any last things you'd like to say to people, Kris, before you head out?
Yeah, look, I think if you're stuck at home and you can't really go out and about anywhere, it's a fantastic opportunity to take, maybe there's an online course you'd like to take if you're intellectually inclined, or if you just like to relax, pour yourself a glass of wine, get onto Skype and chat with your friends.
Hey, that's what we're
have
doing.
a bit of fun with us.
Yeah, except
Yeah,
I don't
have
have
a bit
wine.
of fun.
I'm in my school right now, so I can't have wine. But I'm glad Kris
Ha ha ha.
have an extra glass for me. So
Yeah.
Otto, any last words you'd like to say before we head out?
Yeah, at least this has been a very interesting experience, and now I can do it like they do it on Hollywood Square. So goodbye, Kris, and goodbye, Joe. And I hope that our listeners and viewers enjoyed this, and feel free to write us, give your feedback, and we'll try to answer or direct you to the source of information that you need.
Yep, and we will be back next week, quarantine or not, where we promise. We even did the live stream, even though the technology was a little bit tricky and the, quality might not be the best, but, we're doing our best. So anyway, good luck, everyone. And until next week, Visa Laba VCM.